If you grew up building Lego sets like I did, then I know you've had the thought, wouldn't it be crazy to make my own Lego animated film? Well, last year that dream came true when I got the call to make this animation for Lego Horizon Adventures theme song, combining the world of Horizon with the world of Lego. And I want to take you behind the scenes, showing you every step along the way, and I'll share the exact production roadmap you can follow to make your own animated films yourself. What's up? My name is Josh Tunin. I'm a director, and for the last 9 years, I've worked as a visual effects artist and supervisor, working on movies like Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker, Dungeons & Dragons, and Across the Spider-Verse. But I started out just like you, as a self-taught visual effects artist learning right here on YouTube. Spider-Verse was my first feature animated film, and ever since, I've been obsessed with making my own fully animated short films with Unreal Engine. In fact, the first time I used Unreal Engine at a real visual effects studio was back in 2022, when I joined Pixamundo, the Academy Award-winning visual effects studio behind the Game of Thrones dragons. But this time I was working on set, operating the LED volume for TV shows like Star Trek Discovery, all powered by Unreal Engine. And I started to realize how powerful this could be to make animated films with a fraction of the time and budget. And that leads us to where this Lego project got started. October of last year, I got word from Pixamundo asking if I could help direct and supervise a project for the next Lego video game, Lego Horizon Adventures, combining the incredible world of Horizon, where you play as Aloy hunting machines across the vast wasteland, but Legofied into a fun couch co-op experience. And honestly, Lego Horizon is one of the most stunning Lego games ever created. And the coolest part is this game was made using Unreal Engine 5, which means we could share all the assets directly from the game to make sure our animation shared the same exact world. So it's official, we're making the theme song to Lego Horizon Adventures titled Post-Apocalyptic Dance Party, written by MXMtoon. So at this stage, everything starts with the concept. What are the goals we're trying to accomplish in this piece? Well, first off, we need to show off the gameplay, the fun, action-packed combat, where every arrow knocks off another destructible Lego brick as you destroy machines. We also need to show off the world of Horizon, full of lush, overgrown jungles, Arctic forests, and environments from the actual game. Plus, we need to show off the machines. These are the awesome mechanical dinos that you'll only find in Horizon, like the tall neck walking through the jungle, and Thunderjaw, one of the unforgettable boss fights from the original game. To make them feel deadly and dangerous. But most important of all, we need to make it Lego. So to me, that means recreating that stop motion look. Awesome! And no cheating, no bending or warping things around just to make it convenient. Everything you see should be possible in real life. That also means real-world scale and imperfections like fingerprints on the faces and adding details that you'll only see up close. Now, the Lego movie did a lot of things right, and success leaves clues. After going through the movie and taking a ton of screenshots, you'll immediately notice how careful they are to imitate photorealism, using anamorphic lenses and tons of bounce lighting. The Lego Batman movie really built on top of this by adding in more lens flares and fog and volumetrics, all the things you'd see on a stage or on a real film set. I was also pulling stills and videos of EDM concerts to see how we can make this party feel alive and build a stadium where everyone from the village is coming together. So let's talk about the first pitch. This was actually done by Simon Rizzo, the art director on this project. He first developed this idea to kickstart it and get everything off the ground. And there were two things that the clients had reviewed and approved already. We already had an approved design for MXMtoon's minifigure. And we had a first pass of concept frames that the client had some feedback on. It starts off with Maya, or MXMtoon, building out her Lego sets on the couch before a portal opens and she's swept off into the world of Horizon and they have a dance party. Now, the clients bought off on the concept overall, but they had one big note, which was instead of building this in a coliseum, let's do this in the homeworld of the game, Mother's Heart. Now, I was brought on after this first pitch, but it was super helpful to have a few of these things locked down already. This project was unique because there were so many approvals between Sony, MXMtoon, Lego, and Guerrilla, the studio behind the Horizon franchise. So with the character designs locked, they sent over the 3D models of Mother's Heart, so Simon could build on top of it and transform it into our dance arena. Now, all these concepts were an amazing start and painted a clear picture of MXMtoon dropping into this new world. But the reality is we can't just have a dance party for 3 minutes straight. So the critical question I need to answer is, what's the story? If you want to write a story your audience actually cares about, then your characters need to go through these 3 stages: desire, conflict, and transformation. Desire starts with, what does our character want? We need to spell it out for our audience. In our case, Maya wants to build back the world and invite everyone to the party. But step number 2 is conflict. What's getting in their way? And that's the fighting between the villagers and the machines, fighting it out for territory. Now the transformation happens after being invited to the party, they put their differences aside, and they can all dance together as one united village. So now with a rough framework of the story, I had to come back to reality and figure out the schedule. Now there were some critical deadlines that were gonna keep us on the treadmill the entire time during this project. And thanks to powerhouse producer Linda and our project manager Duigu, we were able to map out the entire project before things got crazy to make sure we could hit all of our deadlines in time. Now, our first delivery was going to be for CES, a trade show down in Las Vegas. Sony's putting a booth together to promote the game in collaboration, with the event landing on January 7th. Now, the reality is we need it done before then. So for us, that meant we need to finish everything before Christmas break, before everyone went on their vacations and holidays, because I don't want to cut anyone's vacation short. And for this deadline, we would need 1 minute of fully polished animation. Then the second delivery for the full theme song would be on February 28th. That means 2 minutes of extra animation built out along with animated crowds, all the characters, and globetrotting across multiple locations, and our shots of the portal at the beginning and end. So we're already fighting against the clock, but to make things even harder, we have our live action shoot in just 2 weeks. And the second problem is we don't have any animators, so we'll have to crew up this team from scratch. So this gave us 2 weeks to prep for the live action shoot and 2 weeks to finish a first pass of the storyboards. This is crucial because the storyboard is where you actually make your film and tell your story. If your storyboard doesn't work, all that fancy lighting and animation won't save it. Now typically, I like to start by writing out a shot list in a Word doc, but this time I tried a new technique that you might find helpful. Because we already had the song available, I just went into Premiere, which I use for editing, and started writing out my shots to the beat of the music. This way I could imagine any location, any setup, like a wide, medium, or close-up, and start sketching out sequences and ideas fast to the beat of the song. Then, instead of sketching out storyboards on paper, for me it's way faster and easier to create screenshots in Unreal using our Lego minifigure of MXM-Toon. This way I can try out so many ideas and camera angles all in real time. And this part is super fun and inspiring, and I prefer to start with screenshots instead of animating my cameras because I can take 10 screenshots in the time it takes me to animate one single camera. So every day I'm trying to create as many shots as possible. This is the fun part when you're actually creating your film and quickly trying out lighting combinations and moving the environment around to make the perfect shot. We were able to share those same 3D models between LEGO Horizon Adventures and our own project. This way we could get 3D models from the actual game and tear them apart to build our own modular pieces and create our shots just like we're playing with real LEGO sets. And this was great because we could start off with our hero characters, Aloy and Varl. Plus, we knew we'd have a gigantic crowd of villagers, so we recreated over 20 characters in total. We also had access to the buildings and ruins, like watchtowers, billboards, skyscrapers, ivy, broken down cars, you name it. This gave us a huge head start on the environments. But the fun would be cut a little short because with the tight deadlines, there was no room for error. The #1 saying on the show is the only thing we need to do to get to the finish line is never stop. If we don't stop, we're gonna make it. This brings us to the live action shoot. We're gonna start and end with Maya, or MXM-Toon, building and playing with the newly released LEGO Horizon Adventures set, where you can build the machines from the game, featuring Sawtooth, a Shellwalker, along with Varl and Aloy herself. Now the location had to be in LA because that's where MXM-Toon and Sony were based and available, and to make sure that everything was done in time, we worked with Blue Hour Labs to assemble the on-set crew. For the location, we had a few options for rentals, and I wanted to make sure we had a place that felt like home, with lots of greenery and plants to match the vibe of the game. But in the end, for practical reasons, we ended up at a spot about 20 minutes away from the Sony lot. But to be honest, I was a bit nervous about all the white walls and the couch and everything just looking a little bit too clean. But thankfully, we had some great options from Daniela in the art department, who sent over a lookbook that's exactly what we needed, along with plants, some guitars, and small details that made it feel like home for Maya. So I flew out to LA for 2 days, the pre-light and the shoot day. In the meantime, we already started lining up interviews for animators, so that first morning while I was down there, I had a call with Joe Bonilla. He was an animator in town, and it turns out his first film he ever made was a LEGO stop-motion movie. His reel was great, and it seemed like a really good fit. But before I knew it, I was already late for the pre-light, so I rushed down to the location to check it out in person. Mitch Mullins helped step up to direct the live action portion and came loaded with ideas, along with Ben Meserve, who was the DP. They did a great job of making this living room feel bright, warm, and lived in. Our pre-light day allowed us to go through every single shot setup and see it through the real camera lens. We're even experimenting with a probe lens to make these Lego minifigures feel huge, and it turned into a really great close-up of Aloy before we see her for the first time in the game. So after running through each setup, everything was locked and ready for the next day so we could breeze through our entire shot list once everyone had arrived on set. And for once, we had plenty of time and we're actually ahead of schedule. So at the end of the shoot day, I left with the footage in hand, ready to start the edit and animation. So after the shoot, I checked in on our progress on the environments. By now, Simon was nearly done with recreating Mother's Heart from the game and transforming it into our dance arena. Now we started building this during the daytime, but we needed to throw a party, so I knew this would look awesome by turning off the lights and making a moonlight look. Now we could create foggy stage lighting with an interactive dance floor that glows yellow as characters jump up and down. As it was being developed, I'd continue on building storyboards, and this really helped to design the color palette and all the camera angles for the dance scenes at night. There were two main spotlights that were blue and pink and poured color into our scene, and we added torches in the background to add orange and red, and we had the yellow interactive light coming from underneath the dance floor. Then to get the stadium working, we had to scatter and animate this entire crowd of 300 characters. Then to really finish this off, we added confetti to add pops of color and make it feel like a party. Now this is a great start and it came together really fast, but I thought it was just as important to show off the gigantic world of Horizon. Part of the game is hunting through the jungle, zip-lining between majestic nature and ruins, and in the game, machines are running wild, fighting against the villagers for territory. So our opening shot had to establish and showcase all the unique elements of Horizon, with overgrown post-apocalyptic terrain and decaying skyscrapers, with machines overtaking the world. And whenever I think of Horizon, my mind immediately jumps to the tall neck. I love this design, and we were able to use the real character from the game, so it fit right in. Another important lesson is design through the camera lens. You only need to build what the camera sees if you're making a film instead of making a game. So most of the time we're only building through the camera and it's completely empty to the left and right of frame. We also added rotation to the leaves on all the trees and falling leaves that are blowing in the wind. We also added in a torch and added that random rotation so it gave it the stop motion look. And all these elements are animated at different frame rates. We kept expanding the world by climbing buildings and leaping across cliffs, and we built these cool stop motion waterfalls made by Mufid, a tech artist on the team, all based off the amazing details Gorilla built into the original game. Mufid also helped build out the interactive floor so that we wouldn't have to animate anything by hand. They're all driven by blueprints. And in just a few days, we were able to build out our version of the environments, and everything was starting to shape up. But now it's time to focus on the animation. Now, even though we're animating Lego characters, the animation is not going to be easy, because we have not one, not two, but 3 hero characters that we need in this film, animated in every shot. That's not including the giant machines and crowds of dancing villagers. And by the time I had the first draft of my storyboard ready, we already had 70 shots in the final edit. So I needed a team of unstoppable animators to bring this to life, and we had 3 animators up for the challenge. In animation, your animators are your actors, so if you want to get the right performance, you need to cast the right animators for each shot. The first was Joe Bonilla. We finally pulled the trigger and brought him onto the team. Joe's demo reel had some really strong performances, so we gave a lot of the dancing shots to him. Second was Nicole Herr, an industry veteran and animation mentor who has worked on more movies than you can count. And Nicole was our mercenary. We could hand her any shot and she could tackle it no problem. And finally, Nav Singh, who is on the visual effects team at Pixamundo. He has loads of experience in traditional visual effects and a pretty cool YouTube channel that I'll link below. Nav has a background working on dragons and creatures, so he gave all the shots of the machines to him. But this was his first time ever using Unreal Engine. But he was ready to learn, and that's all I needed to hear. Now, the biggest animation challenges were first creating the stop motion look, which in most cases meant putting limitations on our own work. We would limit the frame rate and limit our poses to only what could happen with a real minifigure. But that didn't stop us from making huge over-the-top poses. We want to cheat gravity and exaggerate all their motion to make it feel as over-the-top as possible. Another thing that helped was making sure everyone was a little bit off balance. Everyone's rocking left and right like they're about to fall over, and this added some really great energy to all the characters. Whenever possible, we'd also try to lower our frame rate, animating at 12 frames per second instead of 24 frames per second, and sometimes completely freezing poses in midair. Now, our camera was always rendering out at 24 frames per second, but we'd adjust our characters to make them slower and make the coolest shot possible. This also meant no motion blur, or it wouldn't look stop motion. And the last challenge was going to be showing off all this action without anything feeling too violent, because it is a family game after all. Now, I am not a character animator myself, so my main job is to communicate. This is done through review sessions called dailies, where we review work every single day, sometimes twice a day. Animation can sometimes feel like you're working in slow motion, so it's super important to give feedback to make sure we're all working towards the same goal. Sometimes I'll just draw on top of the final renders, or we'll shoot live action reference of ourselves, trying to dance along and find out the right pace and rhythm to all of our dances. For this entire project, every one of us had a real Lego minifigure next to our desk, because in every shot we were looking for the most interesting pose possible. If something doesn't feel right, we go straight to a real life minifigure to understand why and come up with a new idea. Now, the way I like to work is to build everything inside of Unreal 5, which meant every character and every animation was created inside of Sequencer and Control Rig. And after a few weeks of experimenting, we started to find some nice rhythm and dance moves that worked on these Lego minifigs. But what really took them to the next level was adding facial animation. Mufid was our one-man army on the project, and he helped build out a custom face rig for all of our characters, so we could adjust and animate expressions inside of Sequencer. And this was that missing ingredient that made all our characters feel alive. We found that hand-drawn expressions looked the best with these big, goofy smiles, trying to get that hand-drawn feel any opportunity that we had. And by adding blinks and squinting between all these different dance moves, everything started to really come together. Next, let's talk about animating the creatures. Now, one of the first enemies you face in LEGO Horizon Adventures are the Watchers. Because of their size, I was thinking it'd be really fun to have MXM2 run in and rebuild him and bring him back to life. This would be her first of many friends along the way that would follow her along to the party. So to make this work, we built out a custom control rig so we could pose and animate him on the fly, and even dance along with Aloy and Maya out on the dance floor. But we also had the big machines like Thunderjaw and Sawtooth. Now, a huge advantage of working directly with Gorilla was starting from the creature animations they used in the game. I thought it'd be hilarious to end this piece with Thunderjaw, this giant T-Rex partying on the dance floor. And we knew we'd only have Thunderjaw in here for a few shots. So I wanted to find out if we could repurpose the existing animation clips and invent a new dance move out of these, instead of making something from scratch, which would require us to make a brand new rig. I was able to combine multiple clips together and use the motion blending tools to make new dance moves out of the existing attack animations. Then, by using additive tracks, we can manipulate and adjust the animation to get the perfect pose through the camera lens. I also added the audio and music into Sequencer, and that way I could assemble the clips to the beat of the music. And using these two methods, we were able to animate everything inside of Unreal. Next, let's talk about lighting. In this case, the mission was simple. I love the expression every frame a painting, but in our case, every frame should look like the cover art for the next Horizon Adventures Lego set. Bright, clear, colorful, and characters popping off the background. The only difference is we're using a better cinema quality lens, and we'll use all the tricks you'll find on a film set, like fog, atmosphere, and animating our lights. But whenever possible, I love shooting my own reference footage to see how light reacts with my own eyes. And that's exactly what I did with the Lego Tall Neck set. Now, people always look at me like I'm crazy when I tell them this, but I always prefer to light something in real life, even if it's just toys and action figures, to see how the surfaces could react. But this was perfect, because now I had the real prop to study anytime. The whole point is to try out ideas and lighting combinations to find something new. So I threw in some colored LED lights and light tubes behind and changed the color and intensity to find looks and color combinations that you'd find in a dance party. And this is also when I realized just how reflective these Lego pieces are. Every plastic brick is super shiny and reflective, and we need to replicate that in our version too. Plus, we could create these colorful reflections as rim lights around our characters. So now I can see exactly what the footage should look like through a real camera lens. But you wanna know our biggest mistake when lighting these tiny characters? When placing lights, most people are focused on the position or the color or intensity, but there's a missing ingredient that changes everything about your lights, and that's the size of the light. In real life, these minifigures are tiny, so most lights are gonna be huge by comparison. So when lighting this in Unreal, we need to exaggerate the size of the lights, and it helps to boost the bounce lighting because it makes the whole world feel smaller. For the nighttime dance sequence, I lit this along with Salva Gomez and Simon, and we faced every challenge on this sequence, especially maintaining the blue, purple, and yellow color palette across a series of shots like this. We also had to animate the stage lights and spotlights to add extra energy and bounce to the scene. Plus, we needed to balance the fog and keep our hero characters clean when they're close up to the camera and make sure everyone else falls into the background. Then we'd animate the speakers and the background characters and have confetti raining down from the sky. And then to finish off each shot, I'd add my one-click compositing template and a pass of lens flares. For the daytime scenes, we were able to study the live-action footage that we shot on set. And you can see how the minifigures and Lego bricks react to the sunlight in real life. And frankly, LEGO Horizon Adventures is one of the best-looking Lego games out there. So we were constantly studying the gameplay and just trying to recreate that amazing world and look that they built. And then 30 shots later, that got us all the way through our first delivery on Christmas Eve to get everything in before CES. After some last minute changes, we got everything approved and ready to showcase on the CES stage floor. And before we knew it, CES was underway. There was an incredible booth that showed off the collaboration between Sony, Gorilla, and LEGO for Horizon Adventures. It was super cool, and they brought out a live action Aloy hunting down a watcher right there for the crowd. But our job was not over yet. After this big push, we had to go back and finish the entire theme, which had 2 minutes of animation left. And at this point, the problems were just beginning. While we were scheduling out the next 2 months, we also had a key team member leave in the middle of production. This is the stage I like to call the murky middle, and it happens in every single film and visual effects project. You spent all this time, months of effort, and the film still isn't good yet. So just remember, trust the process, and if you need to, find something new to get excited about. Even when you're feeling behind and things aren't going to plan, the only way you can fail is if you stop. But the good news is now we had more time to develop the action scenes and flesh out the story. First, let's look at our bow and arrow sequence. As I said, I'm trying to recreate moments from the game, so we start by ziplining down the mountain and using the focus to highlight the enemies. At first, all she sees is a watcher before we see a sawtooth lurking behind her and Varl. So we built this action scene around Maya taking down Sawtooth and saving the day. I also wanted to show off more of the environments and vistas. This is one of my favorite aspects of Horizon Zero Dawn, and it's the incredible landscapes you'd only find right here. We knew this would end by inviting Thunderjaw after visiting his cave, but we got to stop for a moment and overlook the mountaintops too. As the story changed, we actually ended up making 2 versions of this shot. One for our CES version and one for the final animation. And then we get to the entrance of Thunderjaw's cave. This is the final boss fight in the game, so we had to make it special, and we really wanted to respect this arena from the game itself. Thanks to Gorilla, we were able to start from the same geometry, and we just pushed the fog and atmospherics even further, adding in smoke and exhaust to make it feel dangerous until Maya faces off with Thunderjaw himself. But instead of shooting him down, we'll invite him to the party. And both villagers and machines come together to celebrate at the end. We ended the short by finishing off these portal shots connecting our real world to our LEGO world, saying goodbye after reuniting the world of Horizon. So one more time, I gotta say thank you to everyone who helped out on set and the entire animation team over at Pixamundo. You guys rock. So go check it out. You can watch the entire music video on MXM Tunes channel. Just click the link down below and make sure to hit subscribe and maybe even that like button, and click on the video right here if you wanna go behind the scenes and learn how to make your own films like this Godzilla action scene we created entirely in Unreal Engine 5. I'll see you next time. Peace.